Welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News. I'm Sydney Eisenberg. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we highlight stories from our consumer beat, news about the health and well-being of our Arizona communities.
Your environment can have long-term effects on your health. Cronkite News reporter Mari Nelson shows us how two zip codes just a 15-minute drive away from each other in the valley have a 14-year difference in life expectancy.
Well, the great thing about this place is it has miles and miles of trails. You can go any direction.
John Fixter is a cyclist living in North Scottsdale in the 85258 zip code. It has the highest life expectancy in the valley at 85 years old.
I usually exercise about between 14 and 15 miles a day.
Lots of areas and parks to get out and about in the North Scottsdale area help it rank highly for its health opportunities, increasing the average life expectancy here.
But that's not the only reason. This Health Opportunity Index is a map created by the Arizona Partnership for Healthy Communities and their director, Serena Unrein. It shows that where you live has a big impact on your health. The darker areas show the zip codes with the highest need for health opportunities.
Health is really dependent on your poverty level, on your access to education, on the walkability of your neighborhood. If you live in a lower income zip code, unfortunately, your chances of living a long, healthy life are not as good as if you live in a higher income zip code.
Zip code 85004 in South Phoenix has a life expectancy of only 71. John Ford from the Vitalist Health Foundation says that there are multiple underlying reasons for this.
The reason health outcomes aren't so great there comes from a variety of issues like economic opportunity, but also air quality, the fact that they're close to so much industrial.
A resident that lives in the zip code agrees that the air quality is part of the issue.
I live on the 6th floor and you can just look around and a lot of days it's super hazy. I don't know if that's from the cars or from the buses or whatnot, but that is certainly an issue.
A difference between these two communities is the amount of natural environment that provides a space for health. Fixter says he rides a lot more ever since he moved here due to the beauty of his surroundings.
It gives you more motivation to get out and do something.
In Scottsdale, Mari Nelson, Cronkite News.
The Health Opportunity Index is in the process of being updated to include more factors and will be used to improve city layouts to form a healthier community who will live longer.
The Southern Arizona Association for the Visually Impaired, also known as SAVI, holds exercise classes and private trainings weekly. Their mission is to make the visually impaired community feel comfortable working out while getting them up and moving. Amanda Slee shows us how this is made possible.
Going through blind rehabilitation, the better you feel, both physically and mentally, the better you're gonna do.
Mike Armstrong, the health and wellness instructor for Savvy in Phoenix, is blind himself. He builds trust with his clients by exposing them to the equipment and explaining what other students have done.
I think that part of that is the fear of moving around. Like you get to where you're really docile and you just sit around.
Here at Savvy, they have health and wellness programs from yoga, Tai Chi, and self-defense to help the visually impaired get up and moving their bodies, as the rates of obesity are higher in this community. In group classes, like yoga, the instructor has to teach in a completely different way.
So go onto your forearms and your knees.
Okay,
and then move your knees as far apart as you can.
Since participants can't see the example.
It takes a lot more audible description, sometimes some tactile help. Feeling my body position as I'm doing something, or adjusting someone's shoulders or foot, whatever the case might be.
Another issue at gyms is knowing where the equipment is placed. The Ability 360 Sports and Fitness Center takes issues like this into consideration.
90% of the time at the same place. It's not as many people as in all the other gyms, and people know about disabilities here.
No matter the physical disability, Armstrong says all benefit mentally from exercise.
It lifts their spirits up and kind of shifts their mindset from a place that they can't do something to knowing that it is possible because they're seeing it from all the other students and staff.
In Phoenix, Amanda Slee, Cronkite News.
Training that could save lives. The new Arizona opioid law now allows anyone access to the drug that can reverse a drug overdose. Reporter Amanda Slee attended the training in Tempe and shows us the new impact of the new law.
Right now, possession of naloxone could be considered drug paraphernalia, but starting April 26th, under the newly passed Good Samaritan law, people can administer this drug in good faith. I got a chance to learn how these kits should be used in order to save a life. With more awareness of the opioid epidemic, organizations like Sonoran Prevention Works and Arizona State University's Students for Sensible Drug Policy are teaching people how to administer the life-saving drug naloxone or Narcan.
Every kit comes with 2 doses and 2 intramuscular syringes.
According to the Arizona Department of Health Services, 86% of overdose patients who were given naloxone before being taken to the hospital survived. And that's why training is so important.
This is something that's been going on for a while, and there's a precedent established already that this is in good faith in supplying communities and preventing overdoses.
The goal is to teach people how to detect an overdose and the steps to administer the reversal drug.
I definitely feel more confident and definitely more supported, because I know that there's this network of people that are also trying to, actively reduce, harm that affects people that are using drugs.
Organizations say training younger people can save lives because that's when many start to experiment with drugs.
People under 24 were 15% of Arizona's overdoses in 2016, which amounts to 108 out of 720 overdoses. So this is an issue that faces not only people that are 35 plus who are typically affected by this, but also people our age.
More than a dozen people were given kits during the training session. Overdose prevention classes and naloxone training are available through Sonoran Prevention Works. The next training is scheduled for March 29th in Oracle, Arizona. In the Broadcast Center, Amanda Slee, Cronkite News.
From the immense study of space to something much smaller, genetic testing can discover the tiniest mutations that could develop into health problems. Cronkite News reporter Jamie Fossenkemper talked to a patient who opted for testing after the death of her father.
Patients have to decide if they can handle knowing they are predisposed to major health problems, even if there may not be a cure.
That you honestly have no idea about unless you obviously are tested.
Gene testing identifies changes in chromosomes, genes, or proteins. The results can detect a suspected genetic condition or help determine a person's chance of developing one or passing one on.
These tests look at one's genetic makeup and how a drug, you may respond to a certain drug.
Jacqueline Madlam's father passed away at the age of 50 from early onset Alzheimer's. Because of this, she got tested to see if the gene was passed on.
I just wanted to know if I was predisposed to that or what was going to happen, and I actually was.
Although there's no treatment for Alzheimer's at an early stage, she is making lifestyle changes.
I know I want to keep my brain healthy, eat healthy, work out a lot just to keep my blood flow going up there.
Doctors say that early detection is the key, no matter what the possible diagnosis.
Early detection and early prevention, better treatment, and better outcomes.
Although gene testing can be very beneficial, Dr. Burns says what keeps patients from doing it is the cost.
It can cost as much as $250. To get a panel to look at things like aortic diseases, it could test for as many as 20 or more aortic diseases. It probably costs in the area of around $500.
Madlam is confident that gene testing is beneficial and believes it will help her in the long run.
I think it will help everyone by getting gene tested, because I think you'll just know the roadmap of your body and what you can do to benefit yourself.
The cost of genetic testing can sometimes be covered by insurance, but many times the patient must pay out of pocket. In the Broadcast Center, Jamie Fossenkemper, Cronkite News.
So far this year, there have been 4 incidents involving child drownings. Reporter Sydney Eisenberg shows us how the Phoenix Fire Department used a drowning drill to teach parents that water safety isn't just a summertime issue.
Transport the child to the hospital.
For some reason, children are just attracted to water, and these drownings happen throughout the year.
The Phoenix Fire Department hosted a drowning drill to show parents that water safety shouldn't be used just in the summertime.
We pulled the child out of the pool. A bystander performed good bystander CPR. Somebody made quick access to 911, and then our crews got there and started CPR from that point.
Firefighters handed out these water safety checklists that focus on the ABCs of water safety: adult supervision, barriers, and classes.
With adequate adult supervision, and really people being vigilant to what's going on and being aware of their surroundings, these are 100% preventable accidents.
Johnson Mathai is the Director of Safety and Security for the Point Hilton Tapatio Cliffs Resort. He invited the department to use the hotel for a water safety drill almost 20 years ago, after hearing about so many drownings in the valley. He says that while all three parts of the ABCs are important for water safety, the most important aspect is adult supervision.
It's not a child's fault. It's the adult supervision that causes, or lack of, that causes it. We do watch, but without their sense of urgency, it becomes very difficult.
In Phoenix, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
According to the Arizona Department of Health Services, in 2014, there were 91 serious water-related incidents that occurred in Maricopa County. Of those 91 incidents, 43 of them involved children between ages 0 and 4 years old.
Sexual violence is one of the largest issues facing universities nationwide. Just last month, an alleged sexual assault at a fraternity party led to a $2.5 million lawsuit filed against the University of Arizona. Cronkite News reporter Madison Stark is live in the media center with more about ASU's innovative efforts to put an end to sexual assault. Madison?
In 2014, a report released by the Sexual Violence Prevention Task Force noted that cultural change through art needed to be made in order to prevent sexual violence. The Herberger Design Institute at ASU heard this call and jumped to action. The Counteract Convening is an event bringing together the minds of students, professors, artists, and experts to help find creative solutions to end sexual violence through art.
The most innovative school in the nation wants to be innovative in this area as well. And that innovation comes from seeing the power of artists and artistic processes as assets to give us new tools to deal with this very complex and challenging topic.
Nick Selesky is the co-creative director for the Counteract Initiative and says the arts are a great way to bring people together over this issue.
They offer things like pleasure to difficult conversations, helping us stay in them for longer periods of time because they offer us access to diverse perspectives and stories.
The Counteract Convening also launched a Grant Seeds program funding creative actions against sexual violence. This is all part of the event's main goal in creating 880 creative acts to combat the 880 acts of sexual violence experienced in the U.S. every day. DeJuan Porter is an ASU freshman who hopes to make a creative difference by utilizing his singing and songwriting background.
All of us kind of came together on one music project talking about your voice matters, let your voice shine kind of thing, come through and let yourself be heard type of thing. We could definitely come up with some very powerful meaning lyrics but also have amazing music to go with it.
Artistic actions and creative designs of all forms are encouraged in this effort to prevent sexual violence. Funding up to $1,200 is available for these preventative expressions. In the Media Center, Madison Stark, Cronkite News.
Veterans are revving up their adrenaline to help relieve the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Cronkite News reporter Amanda Slee attended Vetdrenaline's drift racing event.
After being wounded in combat in 2009, Jess Manny, U.S. Army veteran, needed something more in his recovery process.
Through all the great things that the medical industry does for us, our veterans, there was always that piece I was missing, and I found it through the adrenaline rush in motorsports.
Manny founded Vetdrenaline to help other vets work through their PTSD.
Sometimes getting that adrenaline rush brings us right back to those environments that we had overseas, but in a controlled, positive way.
U.S. Marine veteran Joanna Sweat got a chance to buckle up as a passenger in a drift car. Sweat works in veteran advocacy, encouraging other vets to seek help. But she avoided her own issues until joining this Vetdrenaline team.
It helps you address the things that you miss from the service, like teamwork, camaraderie, and just kind of that adrenaline of having a mission and moving forward and doing something that civilian life just can't fill the gap.
Most civilians don't get to ride shotgun with a professional drift driver.
The 3 that I got to take had never been in a drift car before,
and it completely changed their mind. They said they had no idea the speeds that we got up to, the angle, you know, the tire smoke, and just the horsepower and everything, the whole combination. They said it was just amazing.
I was scared because I didn't understand the concept of just whipping a car around. So, but when you get in it, it's literally like, it's so awesome. You're like floating, and it's so fast. It's like you're competitive, you're racing, and so that's fun.
Feeling the rush without being in the battle. In Chandler, Amanda Slee, Cronkite News.
The next Vetdrenaline event will be a desert challenge on October 12th in Laughlin.
National parks are created to preserve treasured land, but they're facing an unnatural threat. Tonight, we continue our Access Across Arizona series, heading to 2 national parks in the state, Petrified Forest National Park and Saguaro National Park. As Cronkite News reporter Tyler Fingerter found out, theft is a problem plaguing parks across the country.
Across the desert landscape, their silhouette is unmistakable.
The saguaros can be quite tall, and it makes you feel really small.
We took one picture with both of us because it was massive. Like, you know, I would never have dreamed they got that big.
At Saguaro National Park near Tucson, cacti are the main attraction.
You feel like you're so much a part of the desert and just surrounded by these beautiful cactuses.
But the park's namesake cactus is facing a threat from thieves.
It's ironic that we set aside great places like Saguaro National Park and people think that they can just come take the iconic cactus for which the park is named.
It's not a problem that's happening every day, but it's an ongoing problem.
While the park doesn't have specific numbers on how many cacti have disappeared, they say they know it's happening because they found holes where cacti used to stand. Kevin Dahl works with the National Parks Conservation Association. He says being a cactus thief can be lucrative. Each one can fetch $100 or more per foot.
It's absolute robbery and it's absolute criminal activity, and it's for profit. A mature saguaro in a landscape adds something to the value of the home or the business that's for sale or rent.
To try to prevent theft, the National Park Service has turned to technology, putting tiny passive trackers in some of their cacti, allowing them to identify ones stolen from the park. Of the roughly 1.9 million saguaro cacti, only 1,000 of them are tagged, the ones easily accessible and easily transplanted. The trackers, which are similar to pet microchips, don't actively broadcast a signal, so if a cactus goes missing, the only way to know if it's from the park is to scan it using a reader.
Our biggest hope is that it's a deterrent, that people recognize that if they steal cacti from Saguaro National Park, that there's a chance that we're going to be able to identify that that cactus came from the park.
Theft is also an issue at Petrified Forest National Park. Bill Parker leads the Natural and Cultural Resources team there. At one point, the park estimated 12 tons of petrified wood were being walked off with every year. But now they say the problem isn't as bad as first thought.
The resource is still intact and in really good shape. Some people do still take wood and we catch them and give them tickets, but whole areas aren't being stripped clean as was thought in the past.
The park turned to photography to test the theory, taking century-old photographs and recreating them. And the results? If you look at photos from today, most of the artifacts are still intact.
It's a souvenir that people want, but one thing the photography project has showed us is that most people do the right thing.
Well, they say wood theft is not a problem here at the park. They do have signs up on trails warning people not to take it. While technology is helping to track natural resources, education is still a huge part of keeping parks pristine, to make sure that visitors understand the national parks are saved by the people, for the people.
It's a selfish thing when someone does an act of vandalism or steals something from a national park, and it's selfish and it's an act against the American public.
Pieces of American history being taken from some of America's most treasured land. At Petrified Forest National Park, Tyler Finger, Cronkite News.
Today, Arizona residents turned into snake charmers with only a bucket and tongs. Yikes. Reporter Sydney Eisenberg shows us how some people are learning the best way to safely remove venomous snakes from their property.
I've seen rattlesnakes crawling into people's yards, and that's a little too much.
Steve Peralta, like many Arizonans, says seeing snakes on hiking trails and other areas is routine, but now he is able to remove the snakes himself.
When you just see them and look at them, take pictures of them, it's a lot different when you actually handle one because you're messing with an animal that can kill you.
The Phoenix Herpetological Society trained people to remove venomous snakes on their own instead of calling the society or animal control. Students practiced on a non-venomous snake before moving on to the dangerous one.
The snakes were here first. They still are going to find a way into your home or into your backyard from time to time, and it's really helpful to know how to safely remove them.
Now, the removal of a rattlesnake could set you back about $75. With the proper training, all you need is a set of tongs and a bucket. Himes says the best way to avoid snakes is to be aware of your surroundings and don't go into areas you can't see clearly.
That's when most people get bitten, reaching under a grill, reaching under rocks or bushes that they can't really see what's there, and that's when you surprise a snake and don't give it a chance to warn you.
And with Arizona being home to 13 species of rattlesnake, more than any other state, Himes says this type of training is worth it before a surprise strikes in your backyard. In Scottsdale, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
The Phoenix Herpetological Society says as the days start to heat up, Arizonans can expect to see more rattlesnakes. If you do see one, stay at least 3 feet away.
According to census estimates, on average, more than 200 people move to Maricopa County every day. And medical experts say most of them are unfamiliar with valley fever, a fungal infection that kills about 150 people each year. Cronkite News reporter Mari Nelson tells us why many cases are misdiagnosed and go untreated.
I had no idea really what it was, and until I contracted it, and then I found out in a hurry what it was.
Jim Minahan moved to the valley 20 years ago. He will never forget when he came down with a mysterious illness.
I was getting splitting headaches, and my temperature shot up to about 103 and a half. You think you're just having a very bad flu with a cold or something.
And that's what his doctor thought at first. He put Minahan on antibiotics. He became even more ill and returned to the doctor and was diagnosed with valley fever.
Arizona is the main region in the U.S. that has soil that contains a fungus that causes valley fever.
Dr. John Galgiani says that many Arizona physicians misdiagnose the disease.
Many of the physicians don't train here in Arizona. They train in other parts of the country where this is actually a rare disease.
Dr. Galgiani says patients who are experiencing extreme fatigue, high fever, and chest pain may want to seek tests for valley fever.
If they're sick enough to see their doctor and they know about the symptoms of valley fever, and if they have those symptoms, we are recommending that they talk to their doctor about that.
Minahan says he was glad he was finally diagnosed. It took him 6 months to recover.
My story is really what can happen, how you can make the best of a bad situation if there's good understanding and awareness on the part of the doctor and the patient of what he's dealing with.
In Phoenix, Mari Nelson, Cronkite News.
Dr. Galgiani will discuss the need to raise awareness for valley fever at the Association of Healthcare Journalists Conference in Phoenix on Sunday.
Some women suffer from emotional and mental health issues from pressures in work, relationships, and parenting. Cronkite News reporter Madison Miller explains how one psychology expert is helping women get through difficult times.
Sonia Luther welcomes virtual visitors into her home to help women in high-stress jobs. She conducts online group therapy sessions to help women across the United States deal with problems like depression and professional burnout.
Systematically created a program that provides this ongoing nurturance, love, and support to women in their workplaces, in their communities, in university settings, so that you don't have an excuse anymore. It's right there.
At a health conference this past weekend, Luther said mothers in particular have a tough time finding mental balance.
It's hard for most women to conceive of the fact that I might need mothering just like my kids need mothering. That's not something that we're socialized to believe. It's almost like the buck stops with you. This is your job now. You take care of your kids and that's it. But it doesn't work like that.
Research by the Mayo Clinic shows that it's not just about the biology. Cultural stressors hit women harder than men. They note unequal power and status, work overload, and the higher likelihood of emotional, sexual, or physical abuse. Dior Vargas said in her experience, women of color have more trouble getting help.
It was definitely not something that was very seamless, and it took a lot of work and patience, and I was able to get through it all, but of course it involved a lot of work.
In Phoenix, Madison Miller, Cronkite News.
A divorced mother herself, Luther says her next steps are getting groups of women together that are going through marital difficulties because this is a group that rarely receives the support it needs.
Soon, neurology patients will be able to better understand their brain tumors and spine injuries. Cronkite News reporter Jamie Fossenkemper talked to doctors at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix about a new technology that they say is the future of healthcare.
Augmented reality gives surgeons at the Mayo Clinic a 360 view of brain tumors and spines to provide paths to better treatment.
What augmented reality is the ability through special cameras to superimpose that so that I'm actually looking at the real brain, but much like the Pokemon game, I can also see additional things layered on top of that.
Doctors first take an MRI of a patient using special cameras, then build a 3D model tailored to that person's spinal cord or brain.
Build patient-specific models for what's going to happen for that individual patient.
The models help surgeons do the operation before the operation to reduce harm and enhance treatment.
What's available to you through the naked eye is only the tip of the iceberg.
With a more complete view seen through special augmented reality goggles, doctors can sculpt the right dose of radiation to attack cancer cells.
So it's very personalized medicine meets math.
In the future, patients can get their own visual view to help them understand what is happening inside their bodies, and surgeons can better comprehend a patient's specific needs.
Augmented reality has a powerful ability to transform not just neurosurgery, but healthcare.
With a hopeful vision for full patient recovery. In Phoenix, Jamie Fossenkemper, Cronkite News.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.